I always believed that family was the most important thing in the world. We are taught that blood is thicker than water. We are taught that when the whole world turns its back on you, your family will be the ones standing by your side. But what do you do when the people who share your blood are the ones holding the knife? My name is Elena. And looking back, I think my love for my sister, Chloe, was my biggest weakness. It was a blind spot. I saw her as the little girl I used to protect on the playground. I didn't see the woman she had become. I remember the day I felt the baby kick for the first time. It was a flutter, like a butterfly trapped inside me. I smiled, touching my stomach, tears filling my eyes. I wasn't smiling for me. I was smiling for her. I was smiling because I thought I was giving my sister the greatest gift a human being can give. I didn't know then that I was just a factory. I didn't know that while I was drinking vitamins and playing Mozart to my belly, my sister and her husband were calculating profits. I was carrying a miracle. They were just waiting for a shipment. If I had known the truth, if I had known why they really needed this baby, I would have run. I would have run until my feet bled. But I didn't know. I was blinded by love. And that love almost cost an innocent child everything. To understand how this nightmare started, you have to understand Chloe. She was 5 years younger than me. She was always the delicate one, the pretty one, the one who needed help. Our mother passed away when Chloe was just a teenager, so I stepped in. I became more than a big sister. I became a substitute mother. I paid for her college books. I held her hand through bad breakups. I fixed things. That was my role. Elena, the fixer. Elena, the strong one. When Chloe met Mark, I was relieved. Mark was handsome, charismatic, and he seemed to adore her. He worked in investments. I never quite understood what that meant, but he drove a nice car and bought her expensive jewelry. They looked like the perfect couple, but their fairy tale had one crack in it. They couldn't have a baby. For 3 years, I watched my little sister shrink. Every negative test was a tragedy. Every month was a cycle of hope and grieving. I sat with her in the sterile waiting rooms of fertility clinics. I held her while she sobbed into my shoulder, her mascara staining my shirt. "Why me, Elena?" she would ask, her voice broken. "Why can everyone else be a mother except me?" It broke my heart. I was single, focused on my career as a nurse. I didn't have children of my own, but I had a womb. I had health. And I had this overwhelming need to fix her pain. It was a rainy Tuesday in November when they asked me. I remember the sound of the rain hitting the kitchen window. It was a steady, rhythmic drumming. Chloe and Mark came over for dinner. I had made a roast chicken. The house smelled like rosemary and garlic. It felt cozy. But the air in the room was heavy. Chloe wasn't eating. She was pushing her peas around the plate. Mark was tapping his foot under the table, a nervous tick I hadn't noticed before. "Elena," Chloe said softly. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her fingers were ice cold. "We've exhausted our options," the doctor said. "He said my uterus just can't hold a pregnancy. It's too scarred." She looked at Mark, then back at me. Her eyes were wide, filled with a desperate, watery pleading. "We have one healthy embryo left," she whispered. "Just one." I stopped chewing. I knew what was coming. My heart started to hammer against my ribs. "We can't afford a stranger," Mark chimed in. His voice was smooth, but tight. "Agencies cost a fortune. And we want it to be family. We want it to be love." "Elena," Chloe squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. "Please. You're the only one I trust. You're the only one who loves me enough. Will you carry our baby?" The room went silent. The only sound was the rain and the refrigerator humming. I looked at Mark. He was watching me intensely. Not with love, I realized later, but with calculation. Like he was waiting for a coin to drop in a slot machine. But at that moment, I just saw a desperate husband. I looked at Chloe. I saw my little sister. I saw the grief she had been carrying for years. I need to think about it, I said. It was a huge request. 9 months of my life. The risks. The hormones. I'll do anything, Chloe begged, tears spilling over now. We will pay for everything. Medical bills, food, clothes. You won't have to worry about a single cent. Just, please, give me a family. How could I say no? I was the fixer. I was the strong one. Okay, I whispered. Chloe screamed with joy. She jumped up and hugged me, knocking her chair over. Mark let out a breath that sounded like he had been holding it for an hour. He came around and hugged us both. You're saving us, Elena, Mark said into my ear. You have no idea. You are literally saving our lives. I thought he meant I was saving their marriage or their happiness. I hugged him back, feeling like a hero. The process moved fast. Too fast, maybe. But we were caught up in the excitement. The embryo transfer happened 2 months later. I remember lying on that white paper on the exam table. The doctor was efficient, professional. Chloe was holding my left hand. Mark was standing by the door, scrolling on his phone. Mark, come hold her other hand, Chloe scolded gently. He jumped, shoving his phone into his pocket. Right. Sorry. Just work stuff. Big deal closing. He came over and patted my shoulder. His hand was sweaty. 2 weeks later, I sat in my bathroom, staring at a plastic stick. 2 pink lines. I called Chloe on FaceTime. When I showed her the stick, she burst into tears. Real, ugly, happy tears. We're pregnant, she yelled. We're finally pregnant. For the first 4 months, everything was perfect. I was the golden sister. Chloe came over every day with smoothies and organic snacks. Mark sent flowers. I felt cherished. I felt like I was doing something holy. My belly started to swell. I would talk to the baby at night. I'm just your auntie, I would whisper, rubbing the bump. But I'm keeping you safe until your mommy is ready. I felt safe. We were a team. But then, the second trimester hit. And the atmosphere began to change. It started with small things. Things you ignore because you don't want to believe something is wrong. It started with a phone call I wasn't supposed to hear. I was 22 weeks pregnant. My feet were starting to swell, and my back ached constantly. I had stopped working extra shifts at the hospital to rest, just like Mark and Chloe had insisted. One afternoon, I drove over to their house to drop off some mail that had been sent to my apartment by mistake. It was a bank statement for Mark. I had a key, so I let myself in. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Chloe? Mark? I called out. No answer. I walked toward the kitchen, intending to leave the envelope on the counter. That's when I heard Mark's voice coming from his home office. The door was cracked open just an inch. He wasn't shouting, but his tone was intense. Urgent. It's on schedule, Mark was saying. Yes, the checkups are perfect. The doctor says he's in the 99th percentile for height. He's going to be a strong specimen. I froze. Specimen? Who talks about their unborn son like that? I told myself he was probably talking to his father. Mark's dad was a strict, military man who cared about genetics and strength. No complications, Mark continued. He sounded annoyed now. Listen, we agreed on the timeline. You'll get what you paid for when the papers are signed. Just have the rest of the funds ready. I frowned, my hand hovering over my belly. Paid for? Funds? Maybe he was talking about a business deal. He worked in investments, after all. Maybe he was selling a house or a company. That made sense. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Don't be paranoid, Elena, I thought. He's just working. I put the mail on the counter and left quietly without saying hello. I didn't want to interrupt. But as I drove home, that word stuck in my head like a splinter. Specimen. A week later, I went over for dinner again. I was excited. I had brought a catalog of cribs and nursery paint colors. I was 6 months pregnant, and they hadn't started the nursery yet. Look at this one, I said, pointing to a soft blue crib in the catalog. It converts into a toddler bed. It's practical. Chloe looked at the picture, her face blank. She looked thin. Too thin. Her eyes had dark circles under them, like she hadn't slept in days. It's nice, she said, her voice flat. She didn't touch the catalog. Chloe, we need to order it soon, I urged gently. Delivery takes 6 weeks. You don't want the baby sleeping in a drawer. I laughed, trying to lighten the mood. Mark slammed his fork down on the table. The sound made us both jump. We will get the crib when we are ready, Elena, he snapped. His face was red. Stop pushing us. We have logistics to figure out. Logistics? I asked, confused. It's just furniture, Mark. It's complicated, he muttered, looking away. He took a long drink of wine. He had been drinking a lot lately. I noticed 3 empty bottles in the recycling bin when I came in. I'm just trying to help, I said softly. We know, Chloe whispered. She looked at Mark with fear in her eyes. Not annoyance. Fear. We're just stressed. Mark's work is volatile right now. That night, I couldn't sleep. The baby was kicking hard, keeping me awake. I lay there thinking about the empty room at their house. Most expecting parents are obsessed with the nursery. They buy tiny socks. They wash the onesies 3 times. They argue about names. Mark and Chloe hadn't bought a single diaper. Not one pacifier. Why? The doubt started to eat at me. I needed to know if they were in trouble. If Mark was having money problems, maybe that's why they were stressed. If they couldn't afford the baby, I needed to know so I could help. I did something I'm not proud of. I went to the courthouse website. Public records. I typed in Mark Sullivan. I expected to find nothing. Maybe a speeding ticket. Instead, my screen filled up. Liens. Civil lawsuits. 3 of them in the last 2 years. Unpaid loans. And 1 judgment from a casino in Atlantic City for $45,000. My stomach dropped. I felt sick, and it wasn't morning sickness. Mark wasn't a successful investor. He was a gambler. He was drowning in debt. I sat back in my chair, my hands shaking. He owes money to casinos. He owes money to banks. Suddenly, the logistics made sense. They couldn't afford a crib because they were broke. But then, a colder thought crept in. If they were broke, how were they paying my medical bills? They were paying for my organic food, my prenatal vitamins, the best OB-GYN in the city. That cost thousands. If Mark couldn't pay his mortgage, where was the money for the pregnancy coming from? I decided to confront Chloe. Not Mark. Mark scared me now. But Chloe was my sister. I went to their house in the middle of the day on a Thursday. I knew Mark usually went to his office, though now I wondered if he just went to the track. I unlocked the door. Chloe. The house was a mess. There were boxes everywhere. Not moving boxes, packing boxes. like they were clearing things out. I walked into the living room and froze. Mark was there. He wasn't at work. He was sitting on the sofa, and there was a man standing over him. A man I had never seen before. He wore a sharp gray suit, but he didn't look like a banker. He looked like a shark. "The client is getting anxious, Mark," the stranger said. His voice was smooth like oil. "They've advanced you 50%. They expect the product to be delivered in pristine condition." "She's healthy," Mark said, his voice trembling. He was wiping sweat from his forehead. "I see her every day. The baby is perfect." "Good," the man said. "Because if there are any issues, if the mother backs out, you know what happens. We don't do refunds. We take collateral." Mark nodded frantically. "She won't back out. She's my sister-in-law. She's stupidly loyal. She has no idea." I gasped. It was involuntary. A short, sharp intake of breath. The man in the gray suit turned his head toward the hallway where I was standing. Mark's head snapped up. His eyes went wide with horror. "Elena," Mark stammered. I stood there, clutching my belly. The baby kicked, a strong, hard thump against my ribs. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice shaking. "And why did you tell him I have no idea?" Mark stood up, putting on a fake smile that looked more like a grimace. "Elena, you're early," he stuttered. "This is Mr. Henderson. He's an adoption attorney." "Adoption?" I stepped back. "Why is an adoption attorney here? We aren't adopting. I'm having the baby for you and Chloe." Mr. Henderson looked at me. He looked at my belly. Then he smiled. It was the coldest smile I have ever seen. "Mark," the man said softly, "I think you better explain things to the incubator." Incubator. That word hung in the air like smoke. It didn't just hurt. It erased me. It erased my name. It erased the fact that I was a sister, a nurse, a human being. To this man in the gray suit, I was just a piece of machinery. Mr. Henderson adjusted his cufflinks, looked at Mark with a sneer, and walked toward the door. As he passed me, he didn't even make eye contact. He just stepped around me like I was a piece of furniture. "Fix this, Mark," Henderson said over his shoulder. "The transfer is in 3 months. Don't disappoint the client." The front door clicked shut. The sound was as loud as a gunshot in that quiet house. I turned to Mark. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, a frantic, bird-like fluttering. "Mark," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "What did he mean? Who is the client?" Mark collapsed onto the sofa. He put his head in his hands. He looked small, pathetic. "Elena, please," he mumbled through his fingers. "Sit down. Let me explain. It's complicated. Don't tell me to sit down." I screamed. The anger finally broke through the shock. "I am carrying a child. Your child. Who is buying the baby, Mark?" Just then, the kitchen door swung open. Chloe walked in. She looked terrible. Her eyes were red and swollen, her skin pale and waxy. She held a mug of tea with shaking hands. She didn't look at me. She looked at the floor. "Chloe," I asked, my voice cracking, "you know about this?" She didn't answer. She just walked over to Mark and sat next to him, curling her legs up, making herself tiny. "Tell me," I demanded. Mark looked up. His eyes were desperate, frantic. "Elena, listen to me. We are in trouble. Deep trouble. I made some bad investments. I owe people money. Dangerous people. The gambling," I said coldly. "I saw the records, Mark. You're a gambler. He flinched. It started as just a way to get ahead, but the hole got deeper. They were going to take the house, Elena. They were going to hurt us. So you decided to sell your son? I asked. The words tasted like bile. It's not selling, Mark argued, standing up now, waving his hands. It's a private adoption arrangement. High-end. Very exclusive. He started pacing, talking faster, trying to sell me on the idea, like he was selling a used car. This couple, the clients, they are billionaires, Elena. They live in Switzerland. They can't have kids. They want a healthy, American baby with good genetics. They pay a premium. A premium, I repeated numbly. Enough to pay off all the debts, Mark said, his eyes lighting up with a sick kind of hope. Enough to save the house. Enough to set us up for life. And the baby? He will live like a prince. Private schools, nannies, horses. He will have a life we could never give him. I looked at Chloe. And you? I asked. You cried on my shoulder. You told me you wanted to be a mother. You begged me to give you a family. Chloe finally looked up. Her face was a mask of misery. I did want a baby, Elena, she sobbed. I really did. But Mark told me about the debt. He told me they would kill him if he didn't pay. What choice did I have? You had a choice to tell me the truth. I yelled. I am not a factory. I am your sister. We knew you wouldn't agree if we told you it was for them, Chloe whispered. We knew you would only do it for family. I felt the room spinning. I had to grab the back of a chair to steady myself. Everything was a lie. The tears in the fertility clinic. The excitement over the pregnancy tests. The smoothies. The care. It wasn't love. It was maintenance. They were maintaining the equipment. They were keeping the product in good condition so they could hand it over to a stranger for a briefcase full of cash. You used me, I said. My voice sounded strange, detached. You used my body to manufacture a payoff for your gambling addiction. We are saving everyone, Mark insisted, stepping closer to me. Elena, be reasonable. You can't keep this baby. You're single. You're a nurse on a budget. You can't give him what they can give him. This is the best thing for the child. He reached out to touch my arm. I slapped his hand away. Don't touch me. Elena, Mark's voice dropped. It wasn't pleading anymore. It was warning. The deal is signed. The money has already been partially advanced. We spent it. If we don't deliver the baby, they won't just sue us. These aren't people you say no to. I realized then that I wasn't just in a family argument. I was in danger. I looked at Mark's eyes. The desperation had turned into aggression. He looked at my stomach not with love, but with possessiveness. I was holding his winning lottery ticket. He wasn't going to let me just walk out the door with it. I'm leaving, I said. I tried to sound calm, but my knees were shaking. You can't leave, Mark said, stepping between me and the hallway. We need to keep an eye on you. The due date is getting close. Mr. Henderson wants you moved to a private facility next week. A facility? I backed away. A birthing center, Chloe piped up, her voice trembling. It's really nice, Elena. 5 stars. They'll take care of everything. You just have the baby, sign the papers, and then you can go back to your life. And we'll give you money, Mark added quickly. $50,000. For your trouble. They had it all planned out. Lock me away in some private clinic, take the baby the second he took his first breath, and hand me a check to keep my mouth shut. Move, Mark, I said. No, he said. He crossed his arms. You're emotional. You're hormonal. You're not thinking clearly. You need to stay here until you calm down. He was holding me prisoner. I looked around the room. My purse was on the kitchen counter behind me. My car keys were in my pocket. Chloe, I said, looking directly at my sister. Please. Think about what you are doing. This is your nephew. My blood. Your blood. Do you really want to sell him to strangers? Chloe looked at Mark, then at me. She was weak. She had always been weak. But for a second, I saw a flicker of the sister I used to know. Mark, she whispered. Let her go. Shut up, Chloe. Mark snapped without looking at her. That split second of distraction was all I needed. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I grabbed a heavy glass vase from the side table and smashed it onto the floor. Crash. Mark flinched and jumped back, instinctively looking at the shattering glass. I ran. I wasn't fast. I was 6 months pregnant and heavy, but fear gave me a burst of adrenaline I didn't know I had. I shoved past Mark, my shoulder hitting his chest hard. He stumbled. Elena. Stop, he roared. I scrambled down the hallway. The front door seemed miles away. I heard Mark's heavy footsteps behind me. Grab her, Chloe, he yelled. But Chloe didn't move. I saw her in my peripheral vision, standing in the living room doorway, her hands covering her mouth, sobbing. I threw the front door open and practically fell onto the porch. The cool air hit my face. I fumbled for my keys, my hands shaking so bad I almost dropped them. Elena. Mark was at the door now. I unlocked my car, threw myself into the driver's seat, and slammed the lock button just as Mark's fist banged against the window. Bam! Bam! You can't run from this, he screamed through the glass. His face was twisted, ugly. You have my property inside you. I started the engine, threw it into reverse, and peeled out of the driveway. I didn't look back. I just drove. I drove until the house disappeared. I drove until the suburbs turned into the highway. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I touched my belly. The baby was still. I've got you, I whispered, tears streaming down my face, blurring the road ahead. I've got you. They're never going to touch you. But as the adrenaline faded, the cold reality set in. I was alone. I was pregnant with a child that wasn't legally mine. And I was up against a desperate gambler and a wealthy, shadow client who had already paid for the baby I was carrying. Where could I go? If I went home, Mark would come. If I went to the police, Mark was the biological father. He had signed contracts. I was just the surrogate. In the eyes of the law, did I even have the right to keep this baby? I pulled into a gas station parking lot 3 towns over and turned off the engine. I sat there in the silence, listening to the ticking of the cooling engine. I had to disappear. I didn't go home. I knew that was the first place Mark would look. I drove to a cheap motel on the outskirts of the city. The kind of place where you pay cash and they don't ask for ID. The room smelled like stale cigarettes and lemon cleaner. The carpet was sticky. I sat on the edge of the sagging bed, staring at my phone. It had been buzzing nonstop for 2 hours. 15 missed calls from Mark. 8 missed calls from Chloe. Text, Elena, pick up. You're making a mistake. Text, we can work this out. Don't be crazy. Text, Mr. Henderson is very unhappy. I turned the phone off. Then, I took the SIM card out and flushed it down the toilet. I watched it swirl away, feeling a strange mix of terror and relief. For the next 3 days, I lived in a state of suspended animation. I only went out at night to buy food from the vending machine. I wore a hooded sweatshirt and kept my head down. Every time a car door slammed outside, I jumped. But lying in that dark room, feeling the baby kick against my ribs, something shifted in me. The fear started to turn into something else. Something colder. Something harder. They thought I was weak. They thought I was just Auntie Elena, the pushover. The one who always fixed everyone's problems. They were wrong. I wasn't just an aunt anymore. I was this baby's only shield. I knew I couldn't hide forever. I needed armor. Legal armor. I used the motel's lobby computer to find a lawyer. I didn't look for the biggest ad. I looked for the one who specialized in contested surrogacy. I found a woman named Sarah Jenkins. Her reviews said she was a bulldog. I paid for the consultation with the emergency cash I kept in my car console. Sarah's office was small and cluttered with files. She was a woman in her 50s with sharp glasses and no-nonsense eyes. She listened to my story without interrupting. She took notes furiously. When I finished, she took off her glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. "Okay, Elena," she said, her voice gravelly. "Here is the reality. The contract you signed. Did you read the fine print?" I skimmed it, I admitted, looking down. It was 40 pages. And it was my sister. I trusted them. Sarah sighed. Never trust family in a contract. But here is the good news. Selling a human being is illegal. It's human trafficking. If what you say is true, that they are exchanging the baby for debt relief or cash, the surrogacy contract is void. Totally illegal. I felt a spark of hope. So I can keep him? It's not that simple, Sarah warned. It's your word against theirs. Without proof, they will paint you as a hormonal, mentally unstable surrogate who is trying to kidnap their genetic child. Mark is the biological father. The court usually sides with biology unless there is a danger to the child. He is the danger. I insisted. He's selling him. Can you prove it? Sarah asked. She looked me dead in the eye. Do you have a recording? An email? A text message where they explicitly say they are selling the baby? I thought back. I had heard them. I had seen the adoption lawyer. But I didn't have a single piece of paper. No, I whispered. Then we need to get it, Sarah said. She leaned forward. If you want to save this baby, you have to stop running. You have to go on the offensive. You need to get them to admit it. On tape. The idea terrified me. Go back? Face them? But Sarah was right. If I ran, they would hunt me down with lawyers and police. They would say I kidnapped the baby. I would end up in jail, and the baby would end up with the highest bidder. I had to play their game. I bought a cheap burner phone and a digital voice recorder, the kind students use for lectures. It was small, black, and easy to hide. I turned the phone on and dialed Chloe's number. She picked up on the first ring. Elena. She sounded hysterical. Oh my God, where are you? Mark is going crazy. He called the police. I'm safe, I said, keeping my voice steady. I'm ready to talk, Chloe. I'm tired of running. Just come home, she wept. Please. We can fix this. I'm not coming to the house, I said. Meet me at the diner on 4th Street. The one we used to go to with Mom. Just you. If Mark comes, I leave, and you never see me again. Okay, she rushed to say. Okay, just me. I promise. I sat in the back booth, facing the door. My hands were resting on my belly. The voice recorder was taped to the underside of the table, right near the edge. I saw Chloe walk in. She looked like a ghost. She was wearing a trench coat, and her eyes were darting around nervously. She saw me and rushed over, sliding into the booth. Elena, she reached for my hands. I pulled them away. Don't. I was so worried, she said, tears welling up. Worried about me? Or the merchandise? I asked coldly. Chloe flinched. Don't say that. It's not like that. Isn't it? I leaned in. Mark owes money. You're giving the baby to strangers to pay the debt. Tell me I'm wrong, Chloe. Look me in the eye and tell me I'm wrong. She looked down at her coffee cup. She couldn't do it. It was the only way, she whispered. Mark. He messed up bad, Elena. These people. They threatened to hurt us. They said if we didn't come up with the money, accidents would happen. So you decided to sacrifice my nephew? I hissed. It's a good family. Chloe argued, her voice rising slightly. They are wealthy. He will be safe with them. Much safer than with us. We're broke, Elena. We're about to lose the house. We're drowning. This saves everyone. And how much? I asked. How much is his life worth? 200,000, Chloe blurted out. Plus they pay off the casino debt. I felt sick. I physically felt the bile rise in my throat. My sister had put a price tag on a human life. And Mr. Henderson? I asked. He's the broker? He handles the transfer, she nodded. He's coming tomorrow with the papers. Elena, please. Just come back. Sign the papers. You'll get your share. You can start over. I had it. She had admitted the debt. The price. The broker. It was all recording. I can't do it, Chloe, I said, standing up. My legs felt heavy. I can't sell a baby. Elena, sit down. Chloe's face changed. The sadness vanished, replaced by panic. You can't leave again. Suddenly, the bell above the diner door jingled. I looked up. Mark walked in, and behind him wasn't the police. It was Mr. Henderson, and a large man I didn't recognize. Chloe had lied. She had led them right to me. She's here. Chloe yelled, pointing at me. Mark, grab her. My heart stopped. It was a trap. I stood up, my back pressed against the vinyl booth. I was trapped. Mark was blocking the aisle, his face twisted in a fake mask of concern that didn't reach his cold, dead eyes. The large man behind him was scanning the room, blocking the exit. Elena, honey, Mark said, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. You're having an episode. Come with us. We need to get you back to the doctor. He reached for my arm. His grip was hard, bruising. Let go of me. I screamed. I didn't hold back. I let the fear and the rage explode out of my lungs. Help! Call the police. He's trying to kidnap me. The diner went dead silent. Forks paused midair. Every head turned. She's off her meds. Mark shouted to the room, smiling nervously at the stunned customers. She's my sister-in-law. She's pregnant and confused. We're just taking her home. He pulled me harder. I stumbled, clutching my belly. I'm not confused. I yelled, looking at a group of truckers in the booth next to us. My name is Elena. This man is Mark Sullivan. He's trying to sell the baby I'm carrying for gambling debts. Call 911. The word sell hung in the air. It was a word that stopped people cold. Mark's face went pale. He hissed at me, shut your mouth, you psycho. He tried to drag me, but suddenly, a large hand clamped down on Mark's shoulder. It was one of the truckers. A big guy with grease under his fingernails and eyes that didn't like bullies. Let her go, buddy, the trucker said. His voice was deep and calm. The lady asked for the police. This is a family matter, Mr. Henderson stepped in, trying to use his lawyer voice. I represent this family. Step aside. I don't care who you are, the trucker said, standing up. 2 other men stood up with him. Nobody drags a pregnant woman out of here screaming. We're waiting for the cops. Mark looked around. He saw the phones. People were filming. The waitress was already on the landline behind the counter, staring right at Mark while she spoke into the receiver. The trap had backfired. They wanted to take me quietly. Instead, they had an audience. When the police arrived, the chaos was controlled, but the tension was thick enough to choke on. Mark was trying to charm the officers outside. Chloe was crying in a booth. Mr. Henderson was trying to slip away to his car. "Stay right there, sir," an officer ordered Henderson. Another officer, a female sergeant, came over to me. I was shaking so hard my teeth were chattering. "Ma'am, are you okay?" she asked gently. "Do you need an ambulance?" "I have proof," I whispered. My hand was trembling as I reached under the table and ripped the tape off the voice recorder. I handed the small black device to the sergeant. "Press play. Please. Just listen." She looked at me, then at the device. She pressed the button. Chloe's voice, tinny but clear, filled the space between us. It was the only way. 200,000. Plus they pay off the casino debt. Henderson handles the transfer. The sergeant's face hardened. She stopped the recording. She looked over at Mark, who was arguing with another officer by his car. She looked at Chloe, who was hiding her face in her hands. "Stay here," the sergeant said. I watched through the window as she walked over to her partner. She played the tape. The partner listened, then looked at Mark. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The officers weren't listening to Mark's excuses anymore. "Mark Sullivan, turn around and place your hands behind your back," the officer commanded. "What? You can't be serious," Mark shouted. "That recording is illegal. She entrapped us. Turn around." Click, click. The sound of handcuffs. It was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. They cuffed Mark. Then they went for Henderson. The smooth lawyer tried to cite statutes, but he was read his rights just the same. And then, they went for Chloe. I watched my little sister, the girl I had raised, being led to a police cruiser. She looked at me through the window. Her eyes were pleading. "Help me, Elena. Fix it." But I stayed in the booth. I couldn't fix this. I wouldn't fix this. The next few weeks were a blur of flashing cameras and legal meetings. The story was too sensational to stay quiet. The gambling father and the sold son. That was the headline. Because Mark hadn't just done this to me. The investigation revealed that Mr. Henderson had brokered adoptions for 3 other couples in severe debt. It was a ring. A high-end, gray market baby-selling ring masquerading as private adoption. I became the face of the scandal. I didn't want to be, but I had no choice. Sarah, my lawyer, told me that publicity was my safety. As long as the world was watching, the mysterious Swiss client wouldn't dare come near me. I sat in my living room, watching the news. Mark was denied bail. The judge cited him as a flight risk due to his international connections. Chloe was out on bail, staying with a friend. She had sent me 10 letters. I hadn't opened a single one. I was 8 months pregnant now. I was huge, uncomfortable, and emotionally exhausted. But I was free. Sarah called me on a Tuesday afternoon. "Elena," she said, her voice sounding lighter than usual. "I just got off the phone with the district attorney." "Is it bad?" I asked, gripping the phone. "No," she said. "It's over." "The Swiss clients?" "They pulled out. They vanished the second the news broke. They want nothing to do with a criminal investigation." And Mark. Mark is looking at 10 to 15 years for human trafficking and fraud. He signed a document today relinquishing all parental rights to the child. I stopped breathing for a second. He gave up his rights? His lawyer advised him it might get him a lighter sentence, Sarah explained. He traded his son for a plea deal. Just like he tried to trade him for gambling money. It was a hollow victory. It confirmed everything I knew about him. He never wanted a son. He wanted an asset. What about Chloe? I asked. She relinquished her rights too, Sarah said softly. She's facing accessory charges. She's not going to fight you, Elena. She knows she lost. I hung up the phone and looked around the nursery I had set up in my small spare room. It wasn't fancy. The crib was second-hand. The walls were painted a soft yellow. But it was safe. It was a home. I put my hand on my stomach. The baby rolled, a slow, lazy movement. You're mine, I whispered. Legally, morally, completely. You're mine. But just as the relief washed over me, a sharp, searing pain shot through my lower back. I gasped and grabbed the edge of the crib. Then came the gush of water. I was alone. The house was quiet. And it was time. The labor was long. 14 hours of pain that felt like it was tearing me apart and putting me back together again. Usually, a surrogate has the intended parents in the room. They hold her hands. They cheer. They cut the cord. I was alone. But as I lay there, gripping the metal rails of the hospital bed, I realized I wasn't lonely. The nurses were kind. Sarah, my lawyer, actually came and sat in the waiting room just so I had someone nearby. And I had him. The little fighter inside me. One big push, Elena, the doctor said. Meet your son. And then, the sound that changed my universe. A cry. Loud, angry, and undeniably alive. They placed him on my chest. He was slippery and warm, his skin an angry shade of pink. He opened one eye, a dark, deep blue, and looked at me. In that moment, the last of the fear evaporated. The betrayal, the gambling, the police, the court cases, it all just dissolved. Does he have a name? The nurse asked softly, wiping his head with a towel. I looked at his tiny fist, gripping my finger so tight his knuckles were white. He was a survivor. He had survived a plot to sell him before he even took his first breath. Leo, I whispered. His name is Leo. Because he was my little lion. It has been 2 years since that night. Life looks very different now. I sold my condo and moved to a small house with a big backyard in a different state. I wanted a fresh start. A place where nobody knew the name Sullivan or the scandal that came with it. Mark was sentenced to 12 years in prison. The judge made an example of him. It turned out the Swiss client was actually a front for a syndicate that moved children across borders. Mark hadn't just been selling a baby. He had been dealing with monsters. Chloe, that's harder to talk about. She got 3 years probation and community service because she cooperated with the police against Mark. She claimed she was a victim of his manipulation, a battered wife who was too scared to say no. Maybe that's true. Maybe it isn't. She writes to me. The letters come to a P.O. box I set up just for her. I haven't opened them. Not yet. I don't hate her. Hate takes too much energy, and I need all my energy for Leo. I pity her. She wanted a family so badly that she let a man destroy the only family she actually had. She chose a husband over a sister, and money over a child. Now, she has neither. I was sitting on the porch yesterday, watching Leo chase a butterfly in the grass. He stumbled on his chubby toddler legs and fell. He didn't cry. He just looked at me. Mama, he called out. I walked over and picked him up, dusting off his knees. I got you, I said. I've always got you. People sometimes ask me if it's hard raising him alone. They ask if I miss the life I had before, the freedom, the money, the quiet. I look at them and I smile. Because they don't understand. I didn't lose my freedom. I found my purpose. I used to think family was about DNA. I thought it was about who you grew up with, whose nose you have, who sits at your Thanksgiving table. I was wrong. Family isn't blood. Blood is just biology. Family is loyalty. Family is the people who stand in front of the danger, not the ones who put you in it. Family is the person who holds you when you fall, not the one who pushes you. Mark and Chloe provided the biology for Leo. They gave him his blue eyes and his chin. But I gave him his life. I gave him his safety. And every day, I give him his home. I am not his aunt. I am not his surrogate. I am his mother. And he is the best thing that ever happened to me. I look at Leo sleeping in his crib now, safe and sound, and I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't gone to the house that day. If I hadn't heard that conversation. It terrifies me. But it also reminds me to trust my gut. We are often taught to be polite, to be good family members, to keep secrets to protect our loved ones. But there is a line. When loyalty becomes complicity in something evil, you have to break the bond. It hurt to turn my sister in. It broke my heart to watch her go away in a police car. But if I hadn't done it, I would have lost myself. So, here is my question to you. If you were in my shoes, and you found out your sibling was doing something unforgivable, something that could hurt an innocent person, would you have the strength to turn them in? Or would the bond of blood stop you? Would you have given Chloe a second chance? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story touched you, or if you believe that every child deserves to be safe and loved, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us share more stories like this. Until next time, hold your little ones close. And remember, you define your family. No one else.